The Galactic Council chamber was silent, cold, and vast. Bright floating lights hovered above a circular table made of unknown metal. Around it sat representatives from many alien species. Each one carried the history of their own world, their own wars, and their own fear of the unknown. Today, they were not here for peace. They were here to judge Earth. At the center of the chamber stood a holographic display. It showed a small blue planet spinning slowly in space. Earth. A world covered in oceans, clouds, and fragile-looking land. To the eyes of the council, it looked almost harmless. One of the senior council members, a tall insect-like species with sharp glowing eyes, spoke first. "This world has been observed for many cycles," it said. "Their technology is primitive. Their weapons are limited to their own planet. They have no interstellar travel. They show no sign of expansion beyond their system." Another council member, a machine-like intelligence with a calm voice, added more data. "Human population is divided. They fight among themselves. Energy usage is inefficient. No proof of galaxy-level threat detected." A soft wave of agreement moved around the table. To them, Earth was nothing special. Just another young world. A human world that had not yet reached the stars. The council leader, an old being with deep marks across its floating armor-like body, leaned forward. "Then the decision is clear," it said slowly. "Earth is harmless. It does not qualify as a threat. It will be placed under low-level observation only." A new label appeared on the holographic screen. Low threat, civilization. Earth. The chamber remained quiet for a moment, as if the galaxy itself was thinking. Then the decision was accepted. No one objected. No one argued. Because in the history of the Galactic Council, they had seen thousands of worlds, like Earth. Small, divided, weak. Most of them never changed. Most of them stayed the same until they disappeared naturally or were absorbed by stronger civilizations. Earth, to them, was just another name in a long list. But deep inside the archives of the Council, something unusual existed. A fragment of ancient data. Corrupted. Forgotten. It was a warning from a civilization that no longer existed. It said only one line. "Do not judge them by their present state." But no one in the chamber saw this file. Or maybe they saw it long ago and ignored it, like many others. The decision moved forward. Outside the chamber, ships prepared new observation routes. Drones were assigned. Data collectors activated. Earth would be watched, but not interfered with. At least, that was the official rule. Back on Earth, nothing had changed. Cities continued their noisy life. Oceans kept moving. People went to work, argued, laughed, and dreamed. They had no idea that somewhere far beyond their sky, their entire species had just been measured, studied, and marked as unimportant. No alarms were triggered on Earth. No signals warned them, because the Council did not believe Earth needed to be warned. They believed Earth was too small to matter. But in the deep silence of space, something old and forgotten seemed to react to the decision. A distant signal, buried in cosmic noise, flickered for a fraction of a second, and then disappeared again. No one noticed it. Not the Council. Not Earth. But something had already started, and the galaxy would one day remember this moment as the mistake that changed everything. Because Earth was not truly being judged. It was being underestimated. Far below the surface of Earth, where no normal human had ever gone, something ancient was waking up, not alive in the usual way. But not dead either. In a hidden place under layers of rock and ocean crust, an old human-built system started to react. It had been silent for thousands of years. No one had touched it. No one had even remembered it existed. Until now, a small vibration moved through the system like a heartbeat. Then, another. Slowly, lights turned on inside sealed metal corridors that had been dark since before modern history. In the Galactic Council, Earth was still labeled as harmless, still quiet, still ignored. But under Earth, something was changing. The Forgotten Archive. Deep inside what ancient humans once called Sector Zero, a sealed data core began to unlock itself. The system was not modern. It was not built with today's science. It was older, stranger, and far more advanced than anything humans currently used. The system did not ask permission. It did not wait for a command. It simply activated. A voice echoed inside the empty chamber. Soft and mechanical. Recognition sequence initiated. Then silence. Then again. Humanity backup memory detected. Files that had been locked for millennia began to open one by one. Not normal files, but memories of an age humans had completely forgotten. The first shock in a small research station on Earth. Scientists monitoring deep ocean activity suddenly noticed something strange. A signal not from space, but from below Earth's crust. At first, they thought it was a natural geological reaction. Earthquakes, magnetic shifts, maybe old volcanic activity. But the pattern was too perfect, too structured. One scientist leaned closer to the screen. "This is not natural," aside slowly. Another replied, "Then what is it?" No one had an answer. But deep inside the system, the truth was already being revealed. The buried truth, the hidden archive, was not just data storage. It was a warning system, built by humans long before modern civilization reached its current level. A time when Earth was not isolated. A time when something had already looked at humanity and decided to observe them silently. Inside the archive, a message finally unlocked itself. It appeared on screens that had not been used for thousands of years. The words were simple, but heavy with meaning. "If you are reading this, the Outer Watchers have returned." The scientists froze. Outer Watchers. No one understood the term, but the system continued. More texts appeared. Humanity was once observed, not contacted, not guided, only watched. A pause. Then the next line. They learned too fast. The missing memory on Earth's official history records. There was no mention of any alien contact, no war with extraterrestrials, no ancient sightings confirmed. Only myths, stories, legends. But the archive said something different. It showed images, not clear pictures, but fragments of recorded memory data. Tall structures floating in the sky, objects moving faster than human aircraft, and beings that were not human. One scientist stepped back from the screen. "This cannot be real," she whispered. But the system did not care about belief. It continued revealing the past. A final line appeared. "Contact event. Aranel." Then another warning followed. "Observation terminated by external force." All watchers withdrew immediately. The first fear. The room became silent. The scientists were trained to handle data, to stay calm, to think logically, but this was not normal data. This was history that should not exist. One scientist finally spoke. "If this is true, why was it hidden?" No one answered. Because the system itself responded. Not in words, but in a final activation sequence. A low pulse spread through the archive, and every screen changed at the same time. Awakening protocol detected. Outside, the ocean above the hidden facility shifted slightly, as if something deep beneath it had opened its eyes. Back in space, far away, in the Galactic Council chamber, Earth was still marked as harmless. No alarms, no warnings, no change in status. But one small detail updated itself in a forgotten council, a file connected to Earth's past history. It had been inactive for thousands of cycles. Now it showed a single new line. Humanity. Memory. Layer. Active. No one noticed it. Not yet, but something ancient had just started remembering. And when humanity remembers fully, the galaxy would no longer be able to call them harmless. In the official records of the Galactic Council, Earth had a simple history. A young civilization's slow progress, no confirmed contact with alien life. That was the truth the galaxy believed. But truth is not always what actually happened. Sometimes, truth is what survives after everything else is removed, and Earth's real past had been carefully cleaned. The silent visitors. Long before the Galactic Council ever marked Earth as harmless, something had already visited the planet. Not once, but many times. They did not land in cities. They did not speak to governments. They did not reveal themselves. They watched from above, from orbit, from hidden shadows between stars. They studied humanity like a growing experiment. At first, they were curious. A species that fought each other but also helped each other. A species that built tools, then improved them again and again. A species that made mistakes, but never stopped learning. One of the observers recorded a simple note: high adaptability detected. Emotional instability present. Growth rate unusual. Another added, behavior pattern unpredictable. Learning speed increasing with conflict. The secret experiment, the visitors were not just watching, they were testing. Small interference events were created across Earth's history. A sudden invention here, a lost technology there. A spark of inspiration in different civilizations. They wanted to see how humanity would respond, and humanity always responded the same way. They adapted. They survived. They advanced. Even when progress was destroyed, humans rebuilt it faster than before. The observers began to feel something unfamiliar. Concern. The dangerous discovery after many cycles of observation. The alien researchers reached a conclusion. Humanity was not a normal developing species. They were something else. One observer wrote in the final report, "They do not stabilize. They escalate." Another line was added later. "Every conflict makes them stronger." This was not how most civilizations behaved. Most species became stable or collapsed when facing repeated pressure. But humans did neither to improve it. And that made them dangerous. Not because they were strong, but because they learned to fast under stress. The breaking point, the final observation mission, was meant to be simple. A direct analysis of human global communication systems. No contact, no interference. Just study. But something went wrong. Humanity detected them. Not fully, not clearly, but enough. Military radar systems picked up unknown signals in orbit. Astronomical observatories recorded objects that should not exist. Satellite networks began to show gaps in space where nothing could be seen. Humans became curious, then suspicious, then alert. The observers realized something alarming. Human technology had reached a level where they were no longer invisible. One alien scientist sent a final emergency message. Abort observation. They are noticing patterns. The last report, the official contact team, prepared a full report to send back to the council. It was never completed, because something unexpected happened. Human behavior changed rapidly. Not technologically, but mentally. They began linking events together. They began predicting unknown signals. They began building theories about unseen watchers. One final observation was recorded. They are closing the gap between imagination and detection. That was the moment fear entered the alien mission. Not fear of weapons, but fear of understanding. Because if humanity fully understood that they were being watched, they would react. And no one knew how. The vanishing mission, the final observation ship, was not destroyed. It did not crash. It did not send a distress signal. It simply stopped existing in all known tracking systems. 1 second it was there, the next second, it was gone. No explosion, no debris. Just absence. The Galactic Council would later classify it as a technical failure. But the truth was never recovered, because the mission had already sent its final fragment before disappearing. A broken message, corrupted but readable. Humanity is not passive. They respond to being observed. After that line, the transmission ended. The cover-up, the council decided the information was too unstable, too dangerous, too unclear. So they removed it from public records. They erased references to the observation missions. They rewrote Earth's file. No alien contact. No interference. No warning. Just a harmless young world. And over time, even the council members who had seen the original reports began to forget. Not because they wanted to, but because the data was buried so deeply that it became invisible even to memory systems. Present-day silence now, in the present time. Earth was still labeled as harmless. The galaxy believed there was no contact, no history of interaction, no reason for concern. But deep inside the forgotten archives, something small remained alive. A single surviving fragment of the last report. It kept repeating one line over and over. "Do not reinitiate contact protocol." But no one was listening anymore, because the Council had already made its judgment. And that judgment was built on a lie that had lasted longer than most civilizations. A lie that said Earth had never been seen before. But the truth was simple. Earth had been seen, watched, studied, and then feared. And now, the galaxy was about to find out why. The Galactic Council believed in one thing above all else: control. Control of information. Control of observation. Control of risk. And above everything else, control of fear. For thousands of cycles, this system had worked perfectly. Dangerous civilizations were contained early. Rising threats were monitored. Weak worlds were ignored. Earth was placed in the ignored category. A harmless world, a quiet world, a predictable world. But sometimes, the greatest mistakes are not made by enemies. They're made by confidence. The first warning that was ignored in a lower monitoring station near the edge of Council space, an automated system detected something unusual. A small energy distortion near Earth's orbit. It was weak, it was fast, and it was gone almost immediately. The system flagged it as a possible sensor error. No action required. No threat detected. The report was closed within seconds, but deep inside the system, a small note was still saved. Unidentified object. Interaction. Earth vicinity. It should have been reviewed. It was not. The decision to send a scout the Council did not believe Earth was dangerous, but they also did not like uncertainty, so they decided to send a scout vessel. Not a warship. Not a fleet. Just a single observation craft. Its mission was simple: approach Earth. Collect updated data. Confirm Harmless classification. The ship was advanced beyond anything on Earth. It could hide from detection systems. It could bend light around itself. It could travel silently through space. The Council believed this would be routine. The scout ship captain even described it as a waste-of-time mission. No one expected problems. Earth's sky. Unknown eyes. The scout ship entered Earth's orbit slowly. From space, Earth looked peaceful. Blue oceans. White clouds. Slow rotation. No visible defense systems in orbit. No planetary shields. No obvious military response. Everything matched the Council's records. The captain relaxed. "Status confirmed," he said. "No advanced defense grid detected." The crew prepared to collect atmospheric data. They believed the mission would end in minutes. But then, something changed. The first contact failure, the scout ship activated its scanning system. A soft pulse of energy spread toward Earth. It was meant to be invisible. But Earth reacted instantly. Not with weapons, not with signals, but with detection. On Earth, multiple independent satellite networks suddenly synchronized. Military radar stations picked up a ghost signal. Astronomical systems flagged an object that should not exist. Within seconds, global monitoring systems started comparing data. Something was in orbit. Something that should not be there. Human response speed on Earth. Emergency response systems were not unified. Different countries, different languages, different governments, but they all reacted the same way. Fast. Too fast for the scout crew to understand. Within minutes, tracking patterns formed. Within minutes, orbital prediction models were updated. Within minutes, Earth's scientists began identifying movement patterns of an unknown object above them. One analyst spoke urgently. "This is not a satellite. It is not ours. It is something else." Another replied, "Then where did it come from?" No one had an answer. But humanity was already adapting. The moment of disappearance, the scout ship tried to remain hidden. It adjusted its cloak systems. It shifted orbit patterns. It attempted full signal silence. But Earth's detection systems kept improving in real time. Human algorithms were learning from its movement, not just tracking it, predicting Italiana. The captain realized something was wrong. "This is impossible," he said. "They should not be able to detect us like this." Then the ship received its final transmission. Not from the Council, not from Earth, but from its own systems. External pattern replication detected. Before anyone could respond, the ship's tracking signal broke. Screens flickered. Data streams collapsed. And then, silence. No explosion. No debris. No emergency signal. Just like the last mission before it. Gone. The Council confusion in the Galactic Council chamber. Monitoring systems displayed a simple status. Scout vessel. Offline at first, no one reacted strongly. Technical failure was common in deep space, but then another report arrived. And another. And another. Earth's orbit was now blank. No ship detected. No signal received. No confirmation of status. A junior analyst spoke hesitantly. Should we send a recovery unit? The room went quiet, because sending a recovery unit meant one thing. Something had gone wrong. And the Council did not like admitting that. An elder member finally spoke. It is unnecessary, it sighed firmly. The vessel likely suffered a system collapse. Earth is harmless. There is no cause for escalation. The decision was accepted again, but this time, not as smoothly. Some members hesitated. Some data specialists looked at each other silently, because 2 scout missions had now failed in Earth's direction. But no one wanted to challenge the official classification. Not yet. The hidden pattern begins deep inside Council archives. Unnoticed by most systems, a pattern recognition engine began to form a connection. Earth. Lost missions. Unusual signal interference. Historical missing observation reports. The system did not conclude danger. It did something worse. It marked uncertainty. And uncertainty in the Galactic Council was treated as a low priority. So it was ignored. But the system quietly added a single tag. Anomaly cluster forming around Earth sector. No alarms were triggered. No alerts were sent. But somewhere deep in automated logic layers, a question had appeared, and questions in the Galactic Council were often the beginning of regret. Earth. Still quiet on Earth. Life continued normally. People went to work. Children went to school. Cities moved with noise and routine. No one knew a ship had arrived. No one knew it had been watching. No one knew it was gone. But deep inside human systems, something strange was happening. Data was being processed faster than before. Unknown signals were being broken down into patterns, and in one underground lab, a scientist looked at a screen and whispered, "We are not just detecting something." A pause. "We are learning it back." And above Earth, in silent orbit space, where nothing should remain, the galaxy had just lost another piece of certainty. Part 5. Humanity responds. Part 5. Humanity responds. After the disappearance of the scout ship, Earth did not receive any message. No warning. No contact. No explanation. Only silence remained above the sky. But on Earth itself, that silence did not stay peaceful for long, because humanity had already seen something it could not unsee. An unknown object had entered their orbit, and then vanished without a trace. And humans do not ignore things that disappear without reason. The first global alert chain. Within hours, multiple space agencies across Earth shared data. A satellite error, a sensor mistake, a false reflection from debris. But the data did not agree. Different countries, different systems, all showed the same result. Something had been there, and now it was gone. A global meeting was called between scientific organizations. The tone was serious. Not panic, but close to it. One senior scientist spoke clearly. "If this is not ours, then it means someone is watching us." The room became silent, because no one wanted to say it out loud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. The impossible data pattern. The collected signals were strange. Not radio waves. Not light reflection. Not any known communication form. But still structured. Still organized. A young analyst pointed at the screen. "These signals, they follow mathematical logic," he said. Another scientist leaned forward. It is not noise. It is behavior. That word changed the room. Behavior meant intention. Intention meant intelligence. And intelligence meant one terrifying possibility. Someone was observing Earth deliberately. Humanity's first real response. Earth did not have a unified defense system in space, but it had something else. Speed of thinking. Within days, research teams began working together across borders. Old rivalries were ignored. Data was shared instantly. Humanity reacted not as separate nations, but as one species trying to understand a mystery. Deep learning systems were used to decode the unknown signal fragments. Supercomputers processed patterns continuously, and something unexpected happened. The more they analyzed the data, the clearer it became. It was not random. It was structured observation feedback. The system was reacting to Earth, not just watching, learning. The breakthrough moment. In a small underground research facility, a breakthrough occurred. A pattern recognition AI connected all signal fragments together. It produced a simulation. On D-screen, scientists saw something terrifying. A moving object, orbiting Earth, adjusting its position every second, avoiding detection systems. But not perfectly. The AI showed predicted movement paths. It was not guessing. It was learning behavior. One scientist whispered, "This thing adapts in real time." Another replied, "Like it is thinking with us." Silence filled the room again, because now it was clear. Earth was not being passively observed. It was being studied like a living experiment. The decision to track the invisible humanity made a decision. If something was out there, they would find it. Global telescope networks were reprogrammed. Satellite systems were upgraded. Even old military radar systems were repurposed for space scanning. Everything pointed upward. Everything searched for the unseen. But the problem was simple. They did not know what they were looking for. No size, no shape, only absence, only interference. The first human detection success, then it happened. A signal spike. Very small, very brief, but real. One tracking station in orbit noticed a distortion. Not an object, not a light, but a gap in background radiation. A scientist zoomed in. "Something passed through here," he said. Another checked calculations. It moved faster than our tracking resolution. The room erupted into focused activity. For the first time, humanity had a direction. A presence had been confirmed. Not imagined, not theoretical. Confirmed. The rise of adaptive defense. Thinking human engineers began thinking differently. If the object could avoid detection, then detection systems needed to adapt. Not fixed tracking, but learning tracking. Algorithms were rewritten. Systems were trained to predict movement instead of only reacting to it. A new term appeared in research files. Adaptive space awareness systems. It was experimental. It was unstable. But it was fast. And humanity needed fast. The unknown reaction above Earth. Far above Earth, something noticed the change. The invisible observer did not send a message. It did not reveal itself, but it reacted. Its movement patterns shifted. Its orbit path changed slightly. Not escaping, not attacking, just adjusting. As if testing Earth's response, and Earth responded again. Faster this time, more precise, more focused. The cycle had begun. Observation, detection, adaptation, counter-adaptation. No one on Earth called it war. No one in space called it contact. But both sides were now aware of each other. The first uneasy conclusion. We are not alone in observation. A pause followed. Then another statement. And whatever is watching us learns as fast as we do. No one is Mylan. No one argued, because the data supported it. Outside the facility, the sky looked normal. Blue, calm, familiar. But now, humanity no longer saw it the same way, because they knew something was there. something unseen, something learning. And for the first time in human history, Earth was not just looking at the stars. It was being looked back at. After the disappearance of the scout ship, Earth did not receive any message. No warning, no contact, no explanation. Only silence remained above the sky, but on Earth itself, that silence did not stay peaceful for long, because humanity had already seen something it could not unsee. An unknown object had entered their orbit and then vanished without a trace. Within hours, multiple space agencies across Earth shared data. A satellite error, a censored mistake, a false reflection from debris. But the data did not agree. Different countries, different systems, all showed the same result. Something had been there, and now it was gone. A global meeting was called between scientific organizations. The tone was serious. Not panic, but close to it. One senior scientist spoke clearly. If this is not ours, then it means someone is watching us. The room became silent, because no one wanted to say it out loud. But everyone was thinking the same thing. The impossible data pattern. The collected signals were strange. Not radio waves, not light reflection, not any known communication form, but still structured, still organized. A young analyst pointed at the screen. These signals, they follow mathematical logic, he said. Another scientist leaned forward. It is not noise, it is behavior. That word changed the room. Behavior meant intention. Intention meant intelligence. And intelligence meant one terrifying possibility. Someone was observing Earth deliberately. Humanity's first real response. But it had something else. Speed of thinking. Within days, research teams began working together across borders. Old rivalries were ignored. Data was shared instantly. Humanity reacted not as separate nations, but as one species trying to understand a mystery. Deep learning systems were used to decode the unknown signal fragments. Supercomputers processed patterns continuously, and something unexpected happened. The more they analyzed the data, the clearer it became. It was not random. It was structured observation, feedback. The system was reacting to Earth. Not just watching, learning. The breakthrough moment. In a small underground research facility, a breakthrough occurred. A pattern recognition AI connected all signal fragments together. It produced a simulation. On the screen, scientists saw something terrifying, a moving object, orbiting Earth, adjusting its position every second, avoiding detection systems, but not perfectly. The AI showed predicted movement paths. It was not guessing, it was learning behavior. One scientist whispered, "This thing adapts in real time." Another replied, "Like it is thinking with us." Silence filled the room again. Because now it was clear, Earth was not being passively observed. It was being studied like a living experiment. The decision to track the invisible humanity made a decision. If something was out there, they would find it. Global telescope networks were reprogrammed. Satellite systems were upgraded. Even old military radar systems were repurposed for space scanning. Everything pointed upward. Everything searched for the unseen. But the problem was simple. They did not know what they were looking for. No size, no shape, no confirmed technology signature. Only behavior patterns, only absence, only interference. The first human detection success, then it happened. A signal spike. Very small, very brief, but real. One tracking station in orbit noticed a distortion. Not an object, not a light, but a gap in background radiation. A scientist zoomed in. "Something passed through here," he said. Another checked calculations. It moved faster than our tracking resolution. The room erupted into focused activity. For the first time, humanity had a direction. A presence had been confirmed. Not imagined, not theoretical. Confirmed. The rise of adaptive defense. Thinking human engineers began thinking differently. If the object could avoid detection, then detection systems needed to adapt. Not fixed tracking, but learning tracking. Algorithms were rewritten. Systems were trained to predict movement instead of only reacting to it. A new term appeared in research files: adaptive space awareness systems. It was experimental, it was unstable, but it was fast. And humanity needed fast. The unknown reaction above Earth. Far above Earth, something noticed the change. The invisible observer did not send a message. It did not reveal itself. But it reacted. Its movement patterns shifted. Its orbit path changed slightly. Not escaping, not attacking, just adjusting. As if testing Earth's response, and Earth responded again. Faster this time, more precise, more focused. The cycle had begun. Observation, detection, adaptation, counter-adaptation. No one on Earth called it war. No one in space called it contact. But both sides were now aware of each other. The first uneasy conclusion: we are not alone in observation. A pause followed. Then another statement. And whatever is watching us learns as fast as we do. No one is Mylan. No one argued, because the data supported it. Outside the facility, the sky looked normal. Blue, calm, familiar. But now, humanity no longer saw it the same way, because they knew something was there. Something unseen, something learning. And for the first time in human history, Earth was not just looking at the stars. It was being looked back at. Part 6. The law rewrite begins. The galaxy believed laws were stable. Physics was stable. Space was stable. Reality itself followed fixed rules. Civilizations could grow, fall, or evolve. But the laws of the universe never changed. That belief had guided the Galactic Council for millions of cycles, until Earth broke the pattern. The first attack that never worked. It started quietly. No declaration, no warning, just a controlled test. The Council authorized a remote energy strike toward Earth's orbit. Not a full weapon, just a low-level demonstration pulse. The goal was simple: test Earth's defense reaction. The energy was designed to pass through most primitive detection systems without being noticed, but Earth noticed it immediately and responded. The impossible interception. On Earth, tracking systems picked up a sudden energy distortion. Not physical, not visible, but mathematical. One scientist stared at the readings. "This pattern, it is structured like a weapon trajectory," he said. Another replied, "From where?" No one knew. But within seconds, Earth's adaptive systems began reacting. Not blocking the signal, not absorbing it, but changing it. The incoming energy wave was altered in real time. Its structure shifted, its direction bent, and then something impossible happened. The signal returned, back to its source. The Council shockwave in the Galactic Council chamber. Alarms suddenly activated. Not because Earth attacked, but because the energy pulse came back modified. A senior officer spoke sharply. "That is impossible." The pulse had no return vector. Another analyst checked the data again. It did not reflect. It rewrote itself. Silence spread across the chamber, because reflection was known science. But rewriting was not. Something had interfered with the structure of the energy itself. Not blocked it, not destroyed it. Changed it. Earth's first scientific realization. On Earth, scientists studied the returned energy trace. At first, they believed it was a sensor error, but repeated tests confirmed the same result. The energy pattern had been reconstructed. Not perfectly copied, but improved. A young physicist spoke quietly. "This is not defense," he said. "This is transformation." Another scientist replied, "Then what happens if they send something stronger?" No one answered, because they did not know. The second attempt. The Galactic Council refused to accept the first failure as meaningful. They increased the test. A stronger energy wave, more controlled, more precise. This time, they expected results. The energy moved toward Earth again. Faster, heavier, more complex. On Earth, systems detected it earlier than before. Humanity's tracking systems had improved. Now they were not just observing patterns, they were predicting them. One engineer pointed at the simulation. "It is repeating behavior from the last attack," she said. "It thinks we will respond the same way." Another replied, "Will we?" A pause. Then the system activated. The rewrite event. This time, Earth did not simply redirect the energy. It analyzed it. It deconstructed it. It broke it into mathematical layers. Then something unprecedented happened. Earth's systems began rewriting the energy structure before it fully arrived. The incoming wave passed through a computational field generated by human AI networks, and when it exited, it was no longer the same wave. It had been altered at the fundamental level. The energy reached the Council's monitoring buffer, and instead of destruction, it carried information. A message, not written in language, but in physics. The message inside the energy. Council analysts decoded the returned signal. What they found caused immediate silence. The energy wave now contained structured modification patterns. It was as if the wave had been used as a canvas. A senior analyst read the results slowly. "It is not attacking us," he said. "It is teaching us back." No one understood what that meant at first. Then another scientist spoke. "If they can rewrite incoming energy," he paused, "then any weapon we send is no longer a weapon." The chamber grew colder, because that implication was far worse than destruction. It meant control over physical law interaction. The first official concern. For the first time in recorded council history, the term escalation risk was used for a primitive civilization. A debate began immediately. Some argued Earth was still weak. Some said it was a fluke. But the data did not support optimism anymore. Multiple systems confirmed the same result. Earth was adapting physics interactions in real time. Not breaking laws. Not ignoring them. Rewriting their application during execution. One council member finally spoke. "We are no longer testing Earth." A pause. "We are being tested by it." The room did not respond, because no one wanted to accept that statement. But no one could fully deny it either. Earth continues learning. On Earth, scientists did not celebrate. They were confused. Careful, focused. The more they studied the returned energy, the more their systems improved. AI models became faster. Simulation accuracy increased. Prediction systems expanded, and something subtle began happening. Human technology was evolving in response to external pressure. Not randomly, not slowly, but directly shaped by contact with unknown forces. One researcher looked at the system logs and said, "It feels like the universe is teaching us by force." Another replied, "Or we are forcing the universe to reveal itself." Both statements were true, and both were terrifying. The Council's silent fear. Back in the Galactic Council chamber, no new attack was approved. Not because they had stopped, but because they were unsure of the outcome. Every simulation now showed unpredictable results. Every test risked escalation beyond control. Earth was no longer a passive subject. It was an active participant in physical reality manipulation. The classification system was updated again. But no one spoke the new label aloud, because it had never been used before. Not for any civilization, not for any species. Not in all recorded galactic history. And yet, Earth now carried it silently. A world that did not just survive laws of physics, but learned how to rewrite them in return. Part 7. The final message from Earth. The galaxy had faced wars before. Civilization collapses. Planetary invasions. Ancient empires erased by time. But it had never faced something like Earth. Because Earth did not rise like a conqueror. It did not expand like an empire. It did not announce itself with fleets or weapons. It simply evolved in response to being watched. And that was what made it impossible to predict. The silence after the experiments. After the failed energy tests, the Galactic Council stopped direct interference. Not officially, but in practice, all active experiments near Earth were paused. No more controlled strikes. No more observation probes. No more testing responses. The Council called it caution. But in private records, a different word appeared. Containment, uncertainty. Earth was no longer classified as harmless. It was no longer even classified as low threat. It was now labeled unknown evolutionary anomaly. No one agreed on what that meant. But everyone agreed on one thing. They could not predict Earth anymore. Earth's unexpected calm. On Earth, life continued normally. CTS mobile markets opened. Children went to school. Scientists worked in labs. From the outside, nothing looked different. But inside research centers, everything had changed. Humanity's systems were now operating at a new level of awareness. AI models were predicting space patterns with extreme accuracy. Communication systems were processing unknown signal structures in real time. And most importantly, humanity was no longer just reacting. It was anticipating. One scientist looked at global data maps and said quietly, "It feels like we are standing inside a conversation we cannot fully hear." Another replied, "Or we are beginning to understand both sides of it." No one knew which was true. The final council decision. In the Galactic Council chamber, tension had replaced confidence. Multiple species argued over what Earth actually was. Some called it dangerous. Some called it unpredictable. Some refused to classify it at all. But one thing became clear. The old system of observation had failed. So the council voted. A final decision was made. Not an attack, not a contact, but a message. A full-scale transmission. Directly to Earth. The first open signal. For the first time in history, the Galactic Council sent a structured communication toward Earth. It was not coded as threat, not coded as peace, just information. A simple structured signal meant to be understood by any intelligent system. On Earth, detection networks immediately picked it up. Every major scientific station froze at the same time. One operator whispered, "This is coming from outside our system. And it is intentional." Global response teams activated instantly. But there was no panic, only focus. Because humanity had been waiting for this moment without knowing it. Earth decodes the galaxy. The signal was complex. Multi-layered mathematical structure. Self-repairing data format. Non-language-based communication. But Earth's AI systems had grown too fast. Within minutes, partial decoding began. Within hours, full structure mapping was achieved. And what humanity saw changed everything. It was not a warning. It was not a demand. It was a confession. The signal contained council data. Observation logs, historical interference records, failed contact attempts, erased missions, everything. Everything. One scientist stepped back from the screen. They watched Sci slowly. Another added, "For a very long time." A pause. Then a final realization, and they stopped when they became afraid of what we might become. The response that was never expected. Humanity debated what to send back. Some wanted silence. Some wanted questions. Some wanted warning. But in the end, Earth's global scientific network created a unified response. Not emotional. Not aggressive. Just simple truth. The message was built and transmitted. It contained only a few lines. No threats, no demands, no fear, just understanding. We are not your anomaly. We are your reflection under different conditions. If observation creates change, then you have already changed us. So the question is not what we are becoming, but what you caused us to become. The message was sent, and then Earth waited. The galactic reaction. In the council chamber, the transmission arrived. It was decoded instantly. Silence followed, not because it was unclear, but because it was too clear. One senior council member spoke quietly. "They understand the system." Another replied, "They understand us." A third voice added, "And they are not angry." That was the most disturbing part, because every known civilization reacted to interference with fear or aggression. Earth had done neither. It had responded with analysis and reflection. The final shift in perspective. For the first time, the Galactic Council stopped calling Earth a subject, stopped calling it a threat, stopped calling it an anomaly, because none of those words fit anymore. Earth was something else entirely, a civilization that changed when observed, and then studied the observers in return. A loop had formed: observation, adaptation, reflection, understanding. And now neither side could step out of it. The last line of the archive. Deep inside council systems, the original ancient warning file finally updated itself. No one knew why, but one new line appeared beneath the old message. Do not observe them without accepting they will observe you back. And for the first time in galactic history, the council did not delete it. De Ikep Italiano. Because Earth was no longer just a world being watched. It had become a mirror the galaxy could not stop looking into. And in that reflection, the galaxy finally saw something it had never expected. Not a weapon, not a weakness, but intelligence that grows simply because it is seen. And now, the real question remained unanswered. Not what Earth is, but what the galaxy itself has become. After looking at Earth for too long,